No. Hi, welcome back to Pain and Revival podcast. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, I have a very special guest, James Chester. How are you doing?
Oh, it's winter time out here in Colorado, so staying warm and enjoying the holiday season.
Right. So, I met you at a convention and you gave an amazing talk. You're really phenomenal. Um, you are one of the biggest chiropractic advocates in the world. Can I say that? I don't know if I can say that, but I'm going to say that. You are like just so big and so great. So, you wanted to kind of talk about the human spirit, and I think that's great. So,
Yeah,
uh,
thank you, by the way. Thanks for having me on the
mhm,
show. There's a lot that people can learn once they start connecting.
yeah,
I done 1,300 interviews in the time that we've been running our show, and I've realized that if people really want to build their network, they do it like this.
hmm,
They start reaching out to people and asking them to talk about themselves.
yeah,
So the human spirit, the human conditioning, the more that we work together, the more that we can accomplish. The more that we appreciate each other, the more that we can energetically give that person fuel. I think that a lot of times we feel like we're alone, but we're so connected. And people feel like just because somebody gives us a certain feeling through like digital media, like
mhm,
that's real.
yeah,
So I think the human spirit's way more capable than what we're actually doing with our spirit. And the human conditioning is, I'm not good enough. And one
mhm.
person can tell us that, and then we'll tell ourselves that 75,000 times.
Right? Don't isn't that crazy how someone could tell you your whole life that you're amazing, and then one person tells you you're not, and then you just suddenly like that's what you believe for the rest of your life. I think that's insane. I think that's crazy.
Well, we want to be good enough for people. And when
Hmm.
we are not good enough for the person we want to be good enough for, that does something to our inner child.
Yeah.
And then the inner child's like, oh gosh, wow, like, am I going to get grounded? Am I going to get, is somebody going to like take something away from me? Well, what they take away from you typically is love.
Hmm.
And that's your grounding. You get grounded from appreciation and kindness and caring and love and support. So it's an old theme that just replays in us as we get older. But yeah, the human conditioning, when we feel like we've done something wrong,
Hmm.
it just shows up differently.
Yeah. So how do you condition yourself? So let's say you do something and you didn't actually do anything wrong. It's just an opinion thing. Like someone doesn't like you. It's not that you did anything, it's just they don't like you. How do you condition yourself to believe in yourself regardless of what they think?
I think there's different tiers to that. I think that a lot of it has to do with how long have I known someone?
Hmm.
What's my relationship with that person? Do I regard their opinion?
Yeah.
And if it's somebody that I don't know that we don't have deep roots with, I mean, I'm a master of block and delete. Like when somebody doesn't deserve access to me and they've proven that, I just remove access to me. So that's one way that I've dealt with. It's pretty cold and it's very harsh. But I think a lot of times people think that they have access to us and we never granted that to them.
Right.
But when it comes to somebody you have deeper roots with, like a higher level, like a deeper like appreciation or longer relationship, it's harder for us to actually make peace with that.
Hmm.
So we tell ourselves that we're going to be macho and tough and we're going to like remove somebody from our life, but there's really, it's like when somebody passes away, you still think about them all the time. You still think about like, I still think about my mom and brothers. I still think about the grief that I hold. And I think a lot of times when we feel even the slightest bit of I wasn't good enough or there's some shame associated with a relationship or a comment towards us or some guilt towards we might have done something and gosh, somebody thinks something about us differently now. Like I think the strongest thing to do is just get right with you and know that
Hmm.
you're going to, you know, keep your spirit strong no matter what somebody feels about you or energetically like kind of bullies you. Because really that's what people do on social media or comments on one of our videos or comments on something, like people just they don't have any boundaries for a bully for being a bully, and that we also take that on as
Yeah.
a person. Like we're like, gosh, does anybody ever say like sorry? Does anybody ever like, go back and say, man, I messed up, I shouldn't have done that to you, or I shouldn't have said that to you? No,
Mhm.
there's that rarely happens. So we just have to get stronger how we carry on.
Yeah, so I saw a quote the other day. It was like, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, and I think that that falls in line with that, because if you wouldn't take advice from them, why do you care what they think is bad about you? You know? It's just it takes a lot of mental strength and a lot of mental work, and how to get to that place is, I feel like that's the most unknown thing, is how to force yourself to get into that type of a habit, a healthy habits and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people that don't have good anchors for themselves with their
Mhm.
spirituality, with their personal relationships, with what they allow themselves to do, like their activities that they find joy in.
Mhm.
I think, or the things that people do consistently that are habits that help, I guess, give you structure. I think a lot of times people don't even know what that means or how to do that. So they don't have any reference point
Right.
because they didn't see that growing up, or the person that they've seen with those habits, they resent them or don't like them. They
Mhm.
don't like the way that they had a relationship with that person that had those types of habits. So
Right?
like, I'm never going to be like that.
Mhm.
Like, I don't want to be that person that like wakes up and does those things and does that life and goes that and comes home that way. Like,
Mhm.
nope. So that's in our subconscious too. So
Right.
we really have to admire somebody as a mentor. We really have to admire somebody as a guide to start doing things that are like really good for us. I think they said it takes between 6 months and 18 months for somebody to tell us something that's good for us that we'll actually do and implement in it. So
Oh.
it takes a long time for us to get an idea, like starting a podcast.
Mhm.
It usually takes somebody between 6 to 18 months to actually take something that they know is good and to actually take action on it.
You know what's crazy is my podcast, I did it in a weekend. I got the idea on a Friday night, and then I released my first episode that next Thursday, which is crazy. And that comes with, I think that that comes with getting in touch with your innate and being so confident in yourself that you're like, even if this doesn't go the right way, it's that I had confidence in myself and I stuck with an idea.
Yeah, and one of the things that it's around the holiday seasons, I just recommend everybody that has like loved ones that are getting older,
Mm-hmm.
sit down and record them. Sit down, ask them stories.
Yeah.
Sit down and tell them to tell you like the best memories they ever had about loved ones, and keep that, because that's going to give that person such a charge to feel acknowledged and to feel cherished. But it's also going to give you something to like have as a keepsake
Right.
and to share with like your kids, and to say, hey, this is what Granny sounded like. This is like her best days of her life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I wish so many people would do that. So with our show, we've definitely interviewed people that are not here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like a really cool thing that people have a reference to go back and listen to this person talk about their career and miracle stories that they were a part of, and something near and dear to them. And I think that what you're doing is capturing stories, no matter if what I tell people to do or what you decide that's good for you. Like, however that like works for you is up to you. Like, I would tell everybody to do it my way. I would say create an episode every week for 52 weeks and do that for 2 years, and go at least in it for 2 years and see what it does to your life and your career.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are like, yeah, I'm just going to do a collection of these, and wherever it takes me, it takes me. Whatever Nate goes, I'll take it with me.
Right.
So I don't think anybody's wrong, but I think that if people think about creating a brand or a product, they think about it a little bit differently than recording stories of grandma or recording stories of our family around
Mm-hmm.
Christmas.
Right. Yeah. Um, I've always heard that if you want to start a business or if you want to start something, there has to be something in it for the other person, for your listeners. So if I were to start this and people didn't have anything for them and it was just for me, they wouldn't be able to they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't want to do this. So the biggest thing I think in starting a podcast or in like a business is you have to have something for someone else to grasp onto.
I'll just tell you, people want to be invited into a community.
Mm-hmm.
So when you ask people, people are excited to be a part of something. After the past couple of years, we're all looking to be invited in because there's been a lot of you're not invited, or I'm not talking to you anymore, or why'd you do that? That's stupid.
Yeah.
So people are like really looking for a community.
Yeah.
So running a podcast, you get to build your own community.
Mm-hmm. So why do you think that communities have split up over the past few years? Is it COVID or what do you think it is?
I think it has a lot of different layers. I think that people really didn't have much self-control,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't really have understanding of much of anything when it came to personal freedoms until they start getting like attacked. And now everybody's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And through that, people didn't feel comfortable. So when they saw somebody behaving differently than them, they felt their inner child once again scream at that other person, no matter what age they were at, because they didn't agree with them and they don't know how to communicate to them to like say, look, I understand what you're going through. I'm going through something similar, but I don't like what you're doing, rather than a behavior that they might not be proud of. So what happened to our community was psychological, it was physical, it was relational, it was vocational. It told people that they weren't good enough unless they did something, and they weren't going to be accepted or allowed or invited in unless they did something. And now we're seeing that there's a lot when people like buy something and they can't afford it, or somebody buys something and like, damn, why did I spend that much money on that thing? And now they have it. It's called buyer's remorse. Like there's remorse when you purchase something that you really didn't know that you wanted or why you wanted it, but you got it anyways. We've all done it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are very remorseful about what they allowed themselves to do based on the government and the suggestions that they did. So I think some people were really strict and said no. Some people were like, just tell me what to do as long as I can go back to freedom.
Right.
So what it did to our communities was we either were right or we were wrong. And when somebody's wrong, whether they're right or wrong, they feel guilt, shame, and fear. Yeah. So really our human condition, our human spirit has been contained and pushed down. Whereas before 2019, going into 2020, everybody was ready for massive growth. They were ready for like the best year of their life. They were saying this is 2020, the year of perfect vision. Like 2020 is perfect eyesight. So I was coming into that year like, this is going to be the best. And I think that you'd be hard to find people with that much enthusiasm, really that much enthusiasm that I just shared going into 2024.
Yeah. Because it's kind of crushed our spirits because they believed in something so much and then it didn't happen. And so now everyone's like, well, nothing could possibly happen because every time they think of it, they've been let down. But everything seems to be going back to our inner child. So what is your opinion on the inner child? How do you heal your inner child?
Well, I'll just tell people some things that I'm working on. Recently, I've been doing something called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And I've been figuring out like what's going on in my inner talk. And, you know, the things that we say to ourselves becomes the house that we live in.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when people go that route, they don't realize the walls that they're putting up around themselves subconsciously.
Right. I think everyone is, we're all our own worst critic, and we all are really hard on ourselves. So that creates failure because we tell ourselves we can't do it. And so then therefore we can't because we've told ourselves we can't. So how do you get to do it? Like, I want to know how I can still do it, but still even having doubt. Like, how do you push through that doubt?
Well, I would just recommend most people to do is find some daily habits. Really focus on their daily habits and only give yourself the best, because no one else is going to give it to you the way that you'll give it to yourself. And you gotta, I mean, since I found a better relationship with God, this might help a lot of people. I don't feel alone. Even when the world is like shut down and there's no notifications on my device and I'm not getting attention from anybody in the world, I can be somewhat calm knowing that I'm not alone because I have God. So the more that people get spiritually anchored and like have hope and faith, I think that does a lot for, back to the original topic, the human spirit, the human conditioning. Right. When people feel alone and isolated, that's what we call depression. And I think that people become injured, not just physically, but they become injured chemically, like we're talking about people taking that shot.
Right.
Or they become addicted and they drift and sedate because they feel alone and they're looking for something to fulfill them. So they go towards drugs, they go towards alcohol, they go towards sex, they go towards something to fill them.
Right.
But it's really not fulfilling them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no fulfillment, there's just filling. And that becomes a chemical injury. And then emotional injuries exist too. And people that have like abuse or neglect or broken homes or broken families and like real separation that
Mm-hmm.
never was like mended or like worked on, they carry that with them their whole lives.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the things that we're talking about when somebody like the inner child comes out, mm-hmm. It's because of repression. It's because of they don't know how to professionally take care of it. And the system that we're in takes care of it with more chemicals,
right,
and more suppression and more guilt and more shame and more confusion and more sickness, instead of giving a simple answer. Find a daily routine that works for you. Get closer to God, get better relationships with your family, drink water, eat real food, have good, physical, emotional hygiene. Like, mm-hmm. Take care of your life. Tell people you love them. Open doors for people. Be kind. Be considerate. Until you go to that route, the simple route,
yeah,
you're going to be way confused and stuck in these open loops of physical, chemical, spiritual, emotional abuse and disconnect. And then you didn't realize how good it was actually could be, or how good it is if you just looked at it a little bit different.
Yeah, so as someone who's come from a broken home and like crazy family, it's hard to love people. It is so incredibly hard, but it is worth it. But I want to know what your advice is on loving people even when you have been broken before and you feel like you don't want to get hurt. You're scared, basically.
Yeah, one of my mentors would tell me this. You're only alive a little time and you're dead a long time. And while you're alive, you should find ways to find more love and connection and joy. And the other easy way to say it is, people come into our lives. I'm sure this is so cliche and people said it 10 million times, but for seasons, reasons, or lifetimes. Mm-hmm. And everybody comes in with a lesson. And maybe somebody said something to us like, Overnight success happens in 25 years
Mm-hmm.
or something like that will like really anchor with us, and we'll be like, wow, I should just keep going, because it doesn't happen overnight, and it is a career. It is my life. So when we feel like we've come from something, that doesn't have to be the next chapter.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have to be our story. That's just in our subconscious, and that will stop us from having what we really want.
Right. Yeah, my great grandma, she always tells me they're either a blessing or a lesson. And that's the big, even when someone is a blessing, they can also be a lesson. Like someone could teach you stuff and they still are there and they're still loving you. Not everyone's going to leave you. Some people are, but you just have to get over that. That means they weren't meant for you and they weren't meant to be in your life.
Yeah. I mean, I could give some more examples of what people can do if they really want to get mentally tough and organized with life. I went through a program called Men of Iron, and I was doing the program for almost 4 years. And then I did another program called 75 Hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these are good transition moments for people, because we get really emotional and then we're like, oh gosh, I'm stuck in my emotional cycle again. I'm stuck in my, like this idea that I'm not good enough again. And then it's like, when you don't have time to think about that stuff, when you're busy.
Right.
You don't have time to think about that stuff when you're laughing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't laugh and cry at the same time. So when I think about what people can do, there's a simple formula.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually derived from another program called Wake Up Warrior. But the group that I was a part of, Men of Iron, had a similar framework. But from the original, it's body, being, balance, and business. So every day, and you get a score of 24 or something, 28 by the end of the week. So every day you report. It's called the Core 4. Your body, you're going to eat something green, and you're going to work out. It could be 25 push-ups. It could be hiking a 14,000-foot mountain. It could be riding a bike around the block. It could be 25 jumping jacks. It could be a marathon. But you're going to do something positive physically for your body every day. It could be a chiropractic adjustment. It could be yoga. It could be somebody giving you a massage. Like, you're going to like honor your body. And then you're going to eat or drink something green. Mm-hmm. So for each one, you get a half point. Being, that's the person inside of you. That's your human being. You're going to do something spiritual. You're going to read a daily devotional. You're going to say prayers. You're going to do meditation. You're going to journal. You're going to text people that you love them. You're going to connect with like the spiritual part of you. And you teach somebody something. Like today, I get a chance to teach you something through this wisdom. Like, that's a big part of this. So the balance, that's our relationships. Those are the people in our life. Every day you got to reach out to 2 people. You got to call 2 people, text 2 people, FaceTime 2 people, Zoom 2 people, like connect with them, take them to lunch, have them for dinner, go take them on a walk or a hike, go to work out with somebody. But every day you got to have 2 human connections. And then business. You got to learn something new each day. Read 10 pages out of a book, watch a YouTube video, interview somebody, like do something for your business, go to work, and then you should teach something to somebody each day too. So share wisdom. And I think that if you followed the 4 B's, body, being, balance, and business, for your lifestyle, you would find ways to feel fulfilled, whether the thoughts might be a little cloudy or sunshiny, because you're not going to have a whole lot more time to think about people that aren't in your life, because you're going to be focused on people that are in your life. And that's going to build your community. And that's back to the original thing, is how do you build a community? How do you fix disconnect? Well, you have to be the catalyst to reach out to people. You have to connect with people. And I think that that's really good. And the other part of that is a program I did, 75 Hard. Many people have done it. It's Andy Frisella's program. You do 2 45-minute workouts every day. One has to be outside. You take a progress picture, no cheat meals, no alcohol. You got to follow a diet, read 10 pages out of a book. and I believe a daily progress picture. Maybe I said that already, but you follow certain guidelines. And I was doing the Men of Iron and the 75 hard on top of each other. So when you think about discipline, we can all have a little bit more discipline and healthier habits and drive to do better. We just have to, like I was saying to you the other night, we just have to give ourselves permission to be great because no one else is going to do that for us.
Right.
And, I joke around with people, but I'm like, no one will do your push-ups for you. Like if you want to do push-ups, those are your push-ups. Like I can't give you push-ups through an app. Like you can't, go and watch a webinar and learn and get your push-ups done. Like you have to be the one that's accountable for that stuff. And I think back to the original second part of this was people just lack accountability.
Yeah.
So if you just picked one friend and all you did is said hi to them now until the next year, you'd be better for it. You'd be a lot better for that. Because now you're accountable for at least sending a text message of hi every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what if someone is alone? They don't have many people in their lives. What's a way that someone can keep themselves accountable without having it involving other people? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Personal accountability is one of the hardest things for people to actually learn.
Mm-hmm.
I have routines in the morning. I wake up, I meditate, I read my daily devotional, I read the Bible. I make a shake where it has greens in it, collagen peptides, 5 mushrooms, elderberry, and I make a shake. And then I drink that because it gives me a lot of mental power. And then I take my supplements. And I usually do some type of spinal rehab. So I have really strict habits that I do in the morning. At least right now for this season of my life, that's what I do. I mean, those habits have changed over time. But I really believe that when people find things that work for them, there was a time where I had my personal mission statement, my highest life values, my 1-year targets, and all these different parts of my life, 14 different components of life. And I had this 5-minute recording of me talking to myself. And I'd listen to that every day. And I'd listen to that recording after I meditated or before I meditated. And it was getting into my subconscious. So I think when a lot of times we think that we don't have access to people, we just have to get really clear with who we're becoming and find morning routines. And then I think when you do that, you find your community.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to you easier. And people come to you easier. And it's not hard. And that's the thing too, is people think life has to be really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't. Life can be easy. We just have to decide that it can be easy.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it's your choice at the end of the day. No one can do anything for you. It's not their choice. And that's something that I've always struggled with is I'm like, oh, well, this person didn't help me. Well, it's not really their job. It's my job to help myself and to learn about myself and to learn the needs that I have and the wants that I have. That's my job to figure that out. And I think people don't do that anymore. They expect someone to do everything for them, and that's just not how it works. And it's not good for you and your health.
Well, when we expect something from people, that's a fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us live in fantasy. Yeah. And that's a hard reality to come to, is that when you expect people to be a certain way in your life, they don't know how they're supposed to be to themselves.
Right.
And we give them that type of, what was the famous word that people were using a couple years back? They're calling it not authority over their life, but agency. They're saying that we're giving you, I'm giving agency to somebody over my decision making. I'm like, no. We have to retain all of that. And when we start thinking how people should be treating us, They barely know how to have agency of their own behavior.
Right.
They barely know how to like have daily routines. They don't know how to train their mind. They don't know how to train their body. They don't know how to train their behavior. They don't know how to like have good habits. And we want them to like think about us and
Right.
like make us important. Like I think we expect a lot from people when we feel deficient.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel deficient, we're looking for somebody to fill that, but we don't know how to ask for it.
Yeah.
And we expect people to just do it because that's what we think. And that's a hard place to be because people don't know how to read our minds. They can read
Right.
our energy. Like our 70% of what we communicate, we don't say. So people pick up on our body language and our behaviors and how we do things. Like if somebody doesn't text message you back for 5 days, you think that you're their friend? You think that they're interested in talking to you?
No.
And then you send them 10 messages and they go unread, and then they send you a thumbs up or an okay or something, and like 5 days later you send them 10 more messages and they didn't respond. Do you think that person is interested in like being in your life?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
But it's really hard for us to accept the fact that people don't want to make space for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that whole thing of loneliness and being alone is really hard for people.
Yeah. But you have to learn to be alone. You have to learn to be with yourself, because at the end of the day, you are all you have. People are going to die. People are going to walk out of your life, and you have to accept that.
Well, I think that that's why people want to busy themselves up with a job,
Mm-hmm.
which might
Yeah.
not be fulfilling. And then they want to busy themselves up with a relationship and get
Mm-hmm.
married and have kids and focus on the kids. And then the relationship goes the opposite direction. And that's not fulfilling.
Right.
So I think a lot of times people will supplement working on the things that they have to take care of inside themselves
Mm-hmm.
and get busy doing something else. And then they just watch that not work too.
Right.
So I think square one is getting right with you, getting right with God, building some habits, staying focused, and then you'll attract the things. And
Yeah.
then you won't be alone. And people will be like, hey, let's go do something. And you will be invited. And I think that that's the cool part, is when we show up enough for other people, eventually people want to be around us.
Yeah.
It might not be the people that we want to be around us, but eventually the right people will show up.
Yeah. Everything will come to you if you let it, but oftentimes people don't let it. But I think this was a wonderful experience. I'm glad that you came on my podcast. If there's nothing else you have, I was going to kind of wrap it up.
Sure. Yeah, let's go ahead and tell everybody bye.
So thank you guys for coming and tuning in, and make sure you're subscribed and following my Facebook page, and go follow Kyra Hustle and listen to his podcast. So thank you guys so much for coming on, and have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.